Hello and welcome to SoftPeak. In today's edition, we will focus on intranets and how intranets works in SharePoint Online. We will have a look at the SharePoint Lookbook, and we will have a look at how we can configure SharePoint to be a pretty good intranet out of the box without any major adaptations. So in this series we call SoftPeak, we focus on how we can be more digital and how we can use modern tooling, artificial intelligence and such, and how we can democratize the development process so more people can do more stuff basically on the digital ecosystems we have today. Starting up here, I will go to my starting page of Microsoft 365. So if I click on this logo, organizational logo on top here, that we've been working with in the previous sections, we can see that we come to this starting page. This is the starting page of Microsoft 365. But there's another starting page also for SharePoint. So we can click on this app launcher. We can click on SharePoint. We can see that SharePoint has its own kind of landing page or default page where we can see we have a couple of pages, and we can from here create new SharePoint sites. We can also create new SharePoint sites from this button here. On the left hand side we have something called the app bar. We have on all the SharePoint pages there is this app bar visible, so we can click on the create and we can click on the site, so we can create a new site. So from here we can of course create sites, and we can create basically two types of sites, one being a team site, which is devoted more to collaboration pieces and how to work together and collaborate to do certain things. And communication sites is more targeted to few to many type of communication, where we want to create more branded content that has a more communication focus on it. We can also see there's other places where we can create sites as well. So we can click on this one and we can go into the admin section here. So if I go into admin section, I will come into the M365 admin center. From here I can open up this left hand bar, this hamburger menu. I think this is called the waffle and this is the hamburger menu. So below here we can see here we have other admin centers as well. We have an admin center for SharePoint, so we can pin this one. I think it's always good to pin the ones that you work a lot with. So I think going into the SharePoint admin center, we can see that I'm now inside SharePoint admin center. Here I can see many different things around how SharePoint is configured. So SharePoint is a pretty complex system. It's been around for 20 plus years, so it's been around for quite some time, and it has evolved over time. There's something called classic SharePoint, and there's also something called modern SharePoint. So most of the time today you see the modern SharePoint and not the classic SharePoint. But if you have an older tenant, then you might have a site that's older than the sites you can create today. So if I click on active sites, I can see what active sites we have in the tenant. At the moment, I only have 3 basic sites created, and I can create new sites here as well. So you see similar interface. But here we also have this browse for more sites. We can create a team site, communication site, and we can also browse for more sites. So in here, I can see in the templates here, I can see more templates, and I can see publishing portals and wiki portals and document center and such as well. So we can actually create more site templates in SharePoint than the most common one, communication site and team site. But out of the box in the tenant, we now have 3 sites. We have an all company site. That's the address for this is sites all company. If I click on this, it can open up a new window. I can see how it looks. It looks a bit different maybe than the standard communication site, because we see the navigation is on the left-hand side instead of on the top that is on the communication site. So if I go back here and let's say I open up communication site like this, we can see that the navigation is going this way rather than for this all company, that the team sites connected. And we can also go back to the admin center here, and we can see that we have another one that has this Teams icon on it. It's called SoftPeak. It's connected to Microsoft Teams. So this SharePoint site is connected to Microsoft Teams. If I open it up, you see it's similar as the other one, the all company one, but it has this icon as well. So it's connected to Microsoft Teams, meaning that inside Microsoft Teams here, if I click on my Teams, I can see that I have a SoftPeak team, and that in this template of Microsoft Teams, there is also a SharePoint site behind it, kind of driving all of the files. So if I click on Files here on the General tab, I can also see that we have a SharePoint. So I can click on is Open in SharePoint. So if I click on Open in SharePoint, it will open up the SharePoint site, but in the Documents folder like this. So any SharePoint site has tons of things in it. So we can click on this cogwheel on top up here, and we can click on this Site Contents. And Site Contents gives a view on what's in the SharePoint site. So we can see we have one document library here. We have several actually, but this one has one item in it. We have a couple of more document libraries, form templates, site assets, and style library. We also have something called site pages, and that's the pages we have. And the default page is the home page of this. This is what we see when we kind of browse the SharePoint site. So this is the default one. And if I click on this again, create, we see that we could create a site here, and we can also create a page and a news post. So inside SharePoint, we also have the concept of pages and news as well. SharePoint has tons of different things that we can do with it. So if I go back to the Admin Center, we can see there is lots of information on each SharePoint site that I can, if I click on this, I can see that there is tons of information around it. Some SharePoint sites also has certain configuration, it allows maybe for external sharing, and it has more accessible from external organizations to be able to access it. It's been shared, so it has its own kind of security and privacy settings as well. But if it's Teams connected, it also it's respecting the Teams boundaries. So if you assign someone to your Teams team, it will also be assigned to the SharePoint group. So behind the scenes, there is a group rather than a SharePoint site. But if it's a standalone or if it's a communication site, it has its own kind of security and settings for who gets to access this site. As an administrator, I can go in here and I can change a lot of things with regards to the SharePoint site. And this is really, there's tons more things you can do, but typically it involves maybe to use PowerShell or configuration to be able to do certain things. But I can, for example, take a communication site and I can create it into a hub site. So I can create it into a collection maybe. So I can create a hub site, like a master site, and I can associate other sites to this site. Previously in classical SharePoint, there was also something called sub-sites that you can associate to the parent site. This is a more modern kind of flat architecture than the previous one. But for many people, maybe most people, SharePoint is the intranet experience, not so much around how to build applications and solutions and document management and so much more stuff that's in SharePoint than just the intranet experience. But let's say I want to create a new site that should be my home site. It should be the default site. It should be the root site, replacing this site, and we will call it Intranet. I can press the create button here and I can create a communication site. Let's call it Intranet, like that. And we have this kind of subdomain called site and teams. We can of course change this and we can add stuff to this as well. But this is the address I get to this site. So I get it, my domain, my SharePoint domain, and sites and Intranet. This is, I think, what most people see. So the site owner should maybe be me. So I will look in the directory and I will point me out, and I am the the site owner. In SharePoint, there is different things between site owner and site collection administrator, 2 different degrees. So there's 2 different concepts. One is the site owner and another one is the site collection administrator. And I can choose, of course, choose the time for this, where I want to do, what time zone it wants to be, and language, of course. Then I can just press finish. Now it's creating, scaffolding out a new SharePoint site for me. As I can see, I have a new communication site template here. The template is communication site. So I can now browse this immediately because it's pretty fast to create this site. We can have custom designs and have certain scripts running as soon as the site is being created. So we can have a default branding applied to any site if we want to. And we, of course, can browse various templates here if I want to create a certain type of style to this SharePoint site. So maybe I want to have it as a brand central or crisis management, department site, an event site. And you can see there's a bunch of different layouts or templates, and we can add to this from our organization as well. I haven't done it on this tenant, but we can, of course, add pre-configured templates for certain scenarios. Let's say we want to have a uniform way of describing various departments. It should look the same, but the content should be different. That's, of course, a possibility. So I can, of course, use this, but I won't use this for this scenario. And we will look at the SharePoint Lookbook a bit later as well. So starting off my new intranet experience, it has a default kind of layout to it. I can see I have a navigation menu, document pages, and site contents. And of course can change this by press edit here. I can remove and add various links in case I want to. And we have a concept of web parts. So if I click on edit here on this page, I can click on this edit here. We can see that we have this site is constructed with various like sections. So I can add a section, or I can click on a section like this, and I can see on the left-hand side, I can edit the section, and I can change how I want this section to look. Maybe I just want 2 columns, or 1/3, or just 1 column like this. I can also, on each section like this, I can click on this, and I can see various web parts. Call it web parts, and we can see below here, we can see this little gray line and with a plus sign. I can add a new web part inside this column. And out of the box in SharePoint, there is many different types of web parts, components, pre-configured components for various purposes that we can add to the page to make it look like we want, and to have it show the content that we want to appear on any given page. So this is the basic construct. So I can build up a page, and when I have a concept of the page, if I do changes to this, and I can store it, maybe I can remove this. We remove this entire section, and we remove this other section as well. So we have it pretty blank, and we just add one really simple component, text component, and we say, hello. Just simple hello without any formatting. We have this option of republishing. So we can schedule a launch for this, and we can also schedule a launch for an entire site if we want to. So we can republish this. So this page now has been updated. So if I click on site contents now, I can see in site contents, you can find site contents here or in the cogwheel up here as well. So you can have site contents this way as well. It's ending up in the same page. We can see out of the box on this page, I only have documents, form template, style library, and an events list. This is the different type. And I have my one page here. So I can click on site pages. I can now see that this site page here has been changed, and I can see the version history for this. I can click on the version history. I can see that this has been changed, and I can go back to I can restore a previous version of the page if I wanted to. So SharePoint allows for tons of different things when it comes to version management and document management. It's treating the site pages a similar way as a document. So we can use lots of metadata structures and automations around this structure as well. From here, maybe I want to clean it up and make it even more simple or easy. So I will change the navigation menu. I will just remove all of the links here, not all, but maybe I just keep the home one for now. So I will keep it very, very basic. So we will have an intranet and we will have hello. And then I can click on this cogwheel again, so we can change the look. I want it to look a bit different. I want to change how this experience is when you visit the intranet starting page. So first off, we have the theme. I can change the theme. There is a bunch of pre-configured themes that I can apply to this site. You can see that the colors are changing for the contrasting colors. Maybe I want to have it a bit darker. I like the darker themes. Maybe dark blue. No, I take this orange black version. I kind of like this setup, and I press save on this. It will store this in my settings for the site. So the next visitor coming to here, they will see this look and feel. I can also look at the header. I can have the header here, the top of the page, to have it more minimalistic, or I can have it in a kind of format that I think is nice looking. I will keep it like this. And then I can have the theming of the section. See this? I can have it as a yellow top background, and I can change the various things. I can change the logo down here if in case I wanted to. So maybe I can change the site thumbnail. I think maybe I created a square one or something in the eye. Maybe I can take the eye. Let's see if we can find the little eye here somewhere. It doesn't allow for this. Maybe we can have, what's it, here somewhere. Let's take this one just to show it. Now you can see that we have this eye here. And of course I can use better graphics for this. I can remove the white background maybe and have it more transparent to show even more fancier layouts to this. And I can change the navigation experience from cascading. Now I don't have any menus below here, but I can, of course, when I change the menu, I go in here, I can add links to various pages, and I can also add labels on top of it. So the experience will look a bit different when I do change the navigation experience. So this is the site navigation. There's also a hub navigation on top here, and there's also a global navigation. If I when I create a home site, we will also see that this SharePoint starting page, if I click on this house to the left here, now it goes to the SharePoint starting page, similar as this one, but it will change this into the global navigation experience driving from this intranet site. We also have something called a footer. It's in the far bottom here on the page. We can have it extended or similar. We can have a logo down here as well if we want to, and we can have a change how this experience is as well. But I think I'm happy for this, so I will just press save, and now I have my new kind of starting experience for my intranet site. We will have a look at how we can create even fancier sites and how we really can make this look really beautiful. But for now, I think I would want to show a little bit how we can promote this site into a home site. So if I click on this, go back to the SharePoint Administrative Center here, and I can see on the intranet, I don't see any option up here to change the default site, but we have a home site here called SoftPeak.SharePoint.com. It's a communication site, so we can have a look at how this site also looks. Open it up. It looks like out of the box. It hasn't been branded at all yet. So I will take this site, and when I see here on the top here, I also have this replace site. Replace the root site with a different site. So I will click this replace the root site, and I will take this address of my intranet site, and I will go back to the admin center and I can replace it. So what I will do now is I will replace the root site of my SharePoint site collection from the other one into intranet, and the old one, the one that's there right now, will be the current root site, will be having a new site called the archive something. So if I press save here, it will kind of switch the root site from the old one into the one I just created. When that's finished, we can see that it's changed. The communication site that was previously the root site has now become the archive site, and my new created site has become this one. So from here, I can have I just copy this address here, this SoftPeak address. So when I click the logo, I don't want to come to Microsoft 365. I want to come to my new created root site. I can do this by clicking on back to the admin center, and from the admin center I can go into my settings here, and I can go to my organizational settings and organizational profile and custom themes. I can go into my theme, and from here, when I click the logo, I want to have this one-click link. So I will just paste it in. So I will have, when I click this logo, you will come to my root site instead of the Microsoft 365 site. So I click on save here. Now it's stored, and I go back to this. Now when I click on this one, it will come to my intranet site. What we want to do now is that we want to create a new home site. So we want to promote this site again. So not only being the root site, it's also going to become the home site for the entire tenant. I go back to the admin center, and here I can see now I have my intranet. It's this domain here. I click on the settings here, and here we have like general settings for SharePoint, and we have one called SharePoint Home Sites. Set the communication site as the intranet landing portal, and the value has not been set. So if I click on this one, I can just type in the address again that I want to have, and I want to have this, and it makes some checks and it becomes green. So yes, it needs to be a communication site, so I can press save. Now it will do a couple of things. It will add additional components to my intranet site. So I go back to the SharePoint site. So here on my newly created home site, I now have some additional superpowers to this intranet site. If we click on the cogwheel on top here, I can now see two additional settings that wasn't there before. One being the global navigation, the other one being something called Viva Connections. So if I start with the global navigation, we can enable the global navigation like this. And we can have a global navigation list, a dedicated list that we will have for the global navigation experience. But let's hit the save here. And now when we see this, when I hover over this little house here on the left-hand side, previously it was pointing to the SharePoint site. Now it's pointing to the global navigation. And it doesn't have any links yet, but I can, of course, create links for this. So let's say I want to create a link to my additional home site here. I can go back to the global navigation. I can click on this edit global navigation here, and I can add a link here. So just add a link here. So I will call it just home, like that, and I will just press save, and I can press save. Now for all of the SharePoint sites, modern SharePoint sites on the intranet experience, it will have this global navigation experience tied to it as well. So when you click on this, they should be able to see this link I just created. As we can see here, it changes to this menu. Can take a few minutes to reflect, so you won't see it immediately, but we will go back to it and we'll check it in a little while here. So we can, of course, add logos and even more things to this as well. So checking out the other one, it's something called Viva Connections. It's another kind of concept that's really interesting, that's kind of bring this intranet experience into Microsoft Teams. So if I click on Viva Connections, I have the option of creating a dashboard here. So I can click on Create Dashboard. If I click this one, it will create a new page. It looks very interesting because I can add cards to this page, and you see here there's a mobile experience to this as well. So SharePoint out of the box is responsive. It's smaller and it's more optimized for mobile phones. When you're on a mobile phone and it's on a desktop, it's optimized for that, of course. So by adding cards to this, I can add additional cards and additional experience. So I can bring in the intranet experience into Microsoft Teams as well. So we'll start off by creating just one card here. If I click on this, I see similar kind of settings. Now it's all gray here, but similar types of settings. So I can create a web link, just a standard web link, and I will add a medium card or a full card like this. So I will create a medium card, and the link I want to have is that I want to open up my home site. You see that it's picking up the small logo I have and the text, and there's some pieces of information here. So if I publish this now it says congratulations, you have created a dashboard and you can create your new home site. So it's also available in the Teams mobile experience now. So if I click on this one, and now I have a dashboard component. If I go back to my intranet starting site like this, I now have the possibility of adding additional components here. So let's say I want to add an additional section here, and I want to maybe have this a different kind of tone. And in this section, I want to have my Viva dashboard. So I can add this here. You see different types of Viva, but I can add my dashboard. So I can add this little card to my intranet starting page like this. So I can add it. So as soon as the user clicks on the logo up here, they will see this little dashboard on my starting page, and they can click on this card and they will come back to this page. So doesn't make much sense in this scenario, but you get the concept. You can have many different pages and different cards behaving in different ways, showing up different things. So from here, now we have this home site created, and we added the Viva Connections dashboard, and we also added the global navigation. Let's see if the global navigation is still here. No, it's still not there. No, it will eventually come. We can go into Microsoft Teams. And from here, we can add manually for each user. We can also set it centrally using the Teams admin center. But I can click on more apps here, and I can search for Viva. And then we have this Viva connection here. I can click on this Viva connection. I can add this Viva connection box, and I can put it maybe on the top here somewhere. So I will just add it on top there. So I will have it on the top. This is welcome to Microsoft Viva, get started. And just press like that. And voila! Now we have the intranet experience directly inside Microsoft Teams as well. So I can click here, and now we have two different sides to this. We have this dashboard card that I just created. So it says good morning. So inside Microsoft Teams, this little app called Viva Connections, and I can of course brand it and change my logo and the text here as well, so I can have it more branded to my organization. But there's two sides to this. One being the Viva home site, the other one being the intranet home site. So I can click on this, and I have this intranet experience. So depending on how much you want to do your own customizations and how much you want to have your own branding, now you see inside Microsoft Teams here, I can click here and I'm doing my stuff inside Teams, and then I can click on the intranet and I can get immediately to my intranet starting page, and I can see my intranet information here. I can even change things, and I can go back to this Viva home site here. I can click on this and I can go back to my dashboard experience. And the really neat thing with this is that if I use my cell phone, if I use my mobile phone, this experience will be immediately responsive, and it looks awesome on my mobile experience. So when I'm on the go, I really am connected to the intranet experience. Inside the Viva Home app here, we can see we have frequent visited sites. So maybe I can visit the intranet site directly from here, and I can always go back and I can change into, maybe I want to have a look at the SoftPeak. So it will open up inside Microsoft Teams. It keeps the user inside Microsoft Teams because it's awesome when you're in a mobile experience that you can stay inside Microsoft Teams and you kind of experience, you don't leave it to open up a separate dedicated browser. But maybe I want to have this site branded in a similar color as the intranet, so I don't need to go to each individual site. I can actually promote a communication site to something called a hub site. So if I do this again, I go back into the active sites and I pick out my intranet site. We have this concept of a hub site. So if I go back here, I don't see any additional navigation yet. So if I promote this to a hub site, so register this as a hub site, and I just press save. Now I registering this, it says saved successfully. That's awesome. I go back to my intranet page like this. Now I see I have additional line on top here. It says intranet home. I have a new setting here. So I can edit this, and I can see I have my home button here. I have two menus. I have this menu on top and this menu below here. So from here, I also have the possibility to change another one. Now I added something called a hub site setting. So now I also have this as a hub site. It's kind of a parent that I can associate, and I can change things. I can change the logos as well, but I don't want to have 3 logos on top of each other. So I'll keep it simple for this. So you need to be mindful about the branding, but you can, of course, change things and make it more like exactly like you want to have it. But now I can go into other sites. So this in the SharePoint app bar to the left here, I can click on My Sites. I can go to this SoftPeak site, which is the Teams connected site. It's the site that's running inside Microsoft Teams here. If I go back into Microsoft Teams, I have in my team here called SoftPeak. This team that I just showed, if I open it up in SharePoint, it will open up exactly the same page. So this is the page of SoftPeak, the Teams team. I can now, if I am on this site, I can now click on this cog wheel up here. It will hopefully show here soon. So here I can also click on site information. I can see that I now have something called a hub site association. I can associate this site to my parent site, the intranet site. So if I press save now, it will actually inherit the settings, the branding colors, and etc., all of the things I've set on the parent site. So now the experience will be similar as for SoftPeak. So if I go to SoftPeak like this, and I'll go to another site, maybe to this site, it keeps the experience and the branding similar. And not only similar, it also gives this additional navigation experience that I can search and I can work within the navigation experience. So everything in SharePoint is searchable, it's findable, and it's depending on the scope. So if I want to have like a certain scope or a department with tons of different pages, and I want to keep it inside some kind of hub, let's call it hub because it's called a hub. So you can keep all of the content inside a scope, and you can search within that scope. And that's a really handy tool as well to have, to be able to search within a kind of a set parameter. And you can also navigate in between various sites on top here. And if I go back to the intranet, I can add the site to my SoftPeak, for example. I can manually add it like this. I just copy the address like that. And I can go back into this, and I can add to this menu. I can add additional links. Maybe I want to have it, just call it SoftPeak like that, and I just press OK. I have it here. Now it's shown, regardless of the page I'm at, it will show as well in there. And also this navigation now, also we have this global navigation. So now we see that we have this global navigation as well. So it's reflecting the intranet because I promoted it into a hub site. So in the intranet starting page now, if I go back to my settings here, like that, and I go back to my global navigation settings, you see that it's changed from this to the hub or global navigation. So now when I have promoted it to a hub site, it will respect the hub site. So be mindful of that you have the same structure now for this navigation as you have for this one, the global and the hub. So now we kind of rushed through a couple of settings in SharePoint, but let's say we open up the lookbook, and we can have an experience on how SharePoint can look. And maybe you're not so fond of the darker colors, and maybe you want to have it really yours and your organizational branding. This lookbook, Microsoft.com, is a really good tool to get an experience. You can also download the lookbook to have an understanding on what's inside the SharePoint possibilities. So we can see when it comes to an intranet kind of thing, you can really make it truly beautiful, and you can really make it feel really engaging. So you can do tons of things. And there's a bunch of things that's included out of the box, but there's other things as well that you can add to, like from open source web parts or your commercial web parts and components that can make it even more awesome, the experience around it. So you can do custom branding. In the old classical SharePoint, you always heard that I don't want to look it like SharePoint. Today, it's rather the opposite. You want it to look like SharePoint because it's really engaging and it's really looking really good, and it's working for many users and organizations every day. So it's really been proven out there in the real world. So it's a really solid solution. So inside here, you can also have a complete news section, so you can share and distribute news and have that kind of communication pieces as well. And we'll have the look at the home site, so we can have a home site and we can have the team sites for collaboration pieces. We can also integrate it really nicely with, for example, Yammer. If we have communities and stuff like that, we want to integrate them together as well. So Viva Engage, and there's tons of more things when it comes to Viva Experience to have this employee engagement and experiences around that. So communication sites is about communication. And we have the hubs that we just saw, so we can associate it to, and we can have different branding depending on your hub. So let's say you're on the green pages, that maybe be the HR pages, and the red one being the sales pages or something similar. So the users know where they are inside the intranet experience. So inside here, we can also see in the lookbook, we can see various designs. So we can have, for example, a leadership corner. We can have a look at that. We can see how a typical leadership news events and engagement, and we can actually add it directly from here into our tenant. So it will create a site collection with the components needed and the web parts configured like this. So you can use it as a boilerplate to create your experience and your sites. But you need to be a tenant administrator to do this, to deploy this specific template. So there's a bunch of different things. So maybe you need a site that you want to share your opinions or your management opinions or something like that on your intranet. You can just, with the click of a button, add a really good starting page for that kind of layout that is responsive. It works really good inside your mobile experience, and it can be connected into Microsoft Teams as well. So there's a bunch of things. I think this landing is a good one. The starting point, this is a good kind of boilerplate for a starting page of an intranet, that you can have news sections and you can have recommended viewing and you can have the conversation is in Yammer, or now it's called Viva Engage, but it's the same thing. You can add web parts to extend your communities. You can have more frequent updates on the starting page, but you can also see all of your documents, and it's also individual for you. So when you have this home site, you see this also search across sites. So it searches the entire intranet experience from the starting page, from the root site. If I'm in a hub site, it kind of scopes the default search into that scope in that case. So there's a bunch of different templates here. We can have a look at the department sales. Let's say we want to have a sales portal, we can have sales information and sales support. So people can get the information in a really nice way, depending on how you want to structure it. And there is, of course, many guides and other videos that explain this in far more detail than this kind of rapid overview of this. But you can also have collaboration sites for various products or projects that you want to kind of highlight. So let's say you have something you work on, bringing out a new product. You can have everything inside Microsoft Teams and still have a pretty good experience that can be separate from your, or integrated with your Teams collaboration. So you can separate and maybe have everyone be able to read the SharePoint pages, but not be able to edit maybe the documents and stuff like that. There is other things as well when it comes to solutions. There is a bunch of different solutions that is pre-configured for various purposes. For example, the learning pathway. It integrates with additional web parts or custom web parts that brings learning and adoption into this mix as well. And there's also something called Viva Learning that also integrated into Microsoft Teams. So the entire learning experience becomes really more integrated than this. So inside this Microsoft 365, there is so much more things both coming now recently announced is this Bing Chat Enterprise, but also the Microsoft 365 Copilot. This together with Microsoft Syntex, with all of this AI kind of functionality coming to this is truly awesome, the possibilities you have. So in the coming section, we will go through more of how we can work with the content and how we can integrate it into more, so we can reuse and have this kind of second brain experience, so we can find things and how we can organize things and how we can leverage some of the superpowers within Microsoft 365. So thank you for watching this little video with me today. This is a part of a series that we call SoftPeak, and I think we're up to episode number 4 now. So it's growing there, it's getting there. So it's all about how we can work smarter and to have more time to do other things and to be more efficient and to work with digital tooling in a more efficient way, and how to leverage the superpowers and the digital intelligences out there, and how to democratize and to have more people do more stuff and to have more time to be more creative and innovative. So if this is something that you kind of appreciate, then hit that like button and maybe subscribe to my channel here. And you can also click this newsletter button up here on softpeak.com and subscribe to my coming newsletter. So with that, I thank you so much for staying with me today, and I wish you a nice day. Thank you.